I stood behind the battered desk, hands clenched tight by my sides, the office's stale fluorescent lights spotlighting every bead of sweat edging down my forehead. My boss, Mr. Iwamura, sat behind his fortress of paperwork, radiating an authority that thrived on others' humiliation. The others in my division watched, poorly disguised interest flickering in their eyes, some hiding smirks behind carefully stacked files. It was another Monday, another weekly scolding. "You are distracted again, Hana," he intoned, voice cold and surgical. "The numbers in this report do not match. Your errors are elementary." He pushed the printout across the desk. I glanced at the page. So many red circles, so much evidence. I forced myself to meet his eyes. "I apologize, sir. I was tired last night, but He cut me off with a curt wave. "You do not belong here if you cannot be fully present. If you dream, you do it at home." In this office, I expect perfect focus, not frivolous distractions. I heard a titter from my right, Rena from logistics, who always found ways to stand just close enough to overhear. I saw the judgment on her face as she glanced at my violin case leaning in the corner, a telltale sign of my shame, my ridiculous childish dream. "Your shift ends at 6, not a second before." He stabbed at his watch, then at his screen, already dismissing me with a flick. I bowed, lips pressed tight, and retreated, the heat in my cheeks searing. My body knew the way through shame, the slow shuffle, the controlled breathing, all the little techniques I'd practiced to keep myself from breaking in view of others. In the hallway, dull beige walls hemmed me in. I opened the bathroom door, stepping into the small oasis of privacy. My hands trembled when I splashed water over my face. Behind my own reflection, the violin case propped against the green restroom tiles looked like an accusation. That night, I practiced in my narrow, high-rise apartment, thin walls barely muffling the sounds. The city's glow seeped in through the curtain gaps. The world outside was a cloud of neon blurs, unbothered by my existence, unconcerned with the dreams of a nobody. My own family, living less than an hour's train ride away, had made their feelings known over the years. My father, strict and inflexible, had said it most plainly. Music is for those who cannot do real work. He stood in the cluttered kitchen, arms crossed, the clatter of my mother's chopping knife punctuating the silence. "You waste your time, and now you waste our face, spending your nights chasing notes." My mother rarely argued, but she couldn't hide her resignation. "Hana-chan, follow your father's advice. Oto-san is right. You need a stable future. Violin won't feed you." I remembered how my little brother Koda snickered, dramatizing my practicing with awkward gestures in front of his friends. The memory stung sharply, but I clung to one image. My grandmother watching me as I played the Suzuki method on my 10th birthday, her tired eyes soft, a smile touching her lips. But Oba-chan died when I was 15, and with her, the last cheerleader for my pointless ambition. Fear was always with me, at work, at home, even passing the music halls on my way to the station. I lived with it, swallowed it every day. But as I ran the bow across strings that night, letting Bach flood the hollow silence, defiance started to flare in my chest. Each phrase was a protest against becoming simply what was expected. I played until my fingers cramped and the clock slipped past 1 in the morning. I silently apologized to my neighbor next door, a retired dentist who left notes about scratching noises. But still, I played. The music chased out my shame. When I finally set down the violin, I looked at my reflection, red-eyed, hopeful, unbroken. The next morning, I typed my resignation letter, hands steady for the first time in months. I didn't tell anyone at work until the last day. I left the building with my violin over my shoulder, drawing curious glances. No one really asked why. Nobody needed to. My parents were mortified. A deluge of emails, calls, and line messages arrived over the next week. Mother's concern devolving into father's scorn. This city is hungry. You are not special. Tokyo will chew you up and spit you out, he said when I called home. I found myself apologizing for things I hadn't even done, but this time I didn't back down. The struggle was far uglier than I had imagined. Stretched between low-paying gigs at children's music schools and endless rejections from orchestras, I discovered a different world. Tokyo after dark, those times when salarymen stumbled home and the alleys behind Shibuya Station came alive with buskers. I performed in train stations where the crowd never stopped for long, collecting coins and scrutinizing glances. My hands grew familiar with the winter air, numbness fighting the memory of warmth. Some days, I wanted to disappear. Once, after a poorly paid wedding performance, where the guests paid more attention to the buffet than to my Mozart, I spent an hour sobbing in a Yoyogi Park bathroom, broken, alone, doubting every decision. The fear of failure was a constant hum beneath every note, every hesitant phone call. My parents stopped talking, except for terse messages. Found a job yet? And the rare call where my mother asked if I was eating enough and then switched quickly to the weather. My solace came from a few unlikely friends. Tomoko, a jazz pianist I met busking outside Uenyo Station, took pity on my thin gloves and stubborn pride and bought us steaming cans of corn soup from a vending machine. "You belong in the halls, not out here among these dogs," she teased, but her eyes were kind. "You need patience and a little luck. And a thicker scarf." She pulled me into gigs, tiny smoky bars, late-night cafes. I learned how to hold an audience, how to improvise, how to fake confidence even when my knees shook. I learned the power of a simple, well-played melody and the rare silence that comes after when strangers sit stunned. It took almost 4 years. 4 years of teaching bored children, performing for rude drunks, sleeping little and eating less, saving every yen. There were times, 100 times, when I nearly gave up. But in the autumn of my 29th year, it happened. An audition with the Tokyo Metropolitan Symphony needed substitutes for a spring program. They'd seen me perform at a late-night jazz set. The email blinked into my inbox on a cold Wednesday morning. I practiced for days, made myself sick with nerves, and when I played for the audition panel in a silent, brightly lit room at Suntory Hall, I put everything I had into the strings. After, as I walked through the Ginza streets, shaky and spent, Tomoko texted me 3 emojis, a bow, a musical note, and a sunflower. I clung to that. The acceptance email came 2 weeks later. Just a temporary position, but it meant rehearsals, spotlights, a little money, and maybe most importantly, my name in the programs. I called my mom, told her in a small voice, "I'm playing at Suntory Hall." For a moment, the phone was quiet. "You're doing what?" she asked, disbelief thick. "I have a contract. I'll be in the orchestra, just for a season, but—" I heard my father's voice in the background. My mother's voice softened a little, but only for a breath before the worry returned. "Don't get too excited. Temporary work isn't permanent. Just be careful, Hana." Still, I sliced off part of my pay to send home, the silent offering of a daughter still wanting to prove herself. That spring, I stepped onto the stage wearing the black dress I'd borrowed from Tomoko, violin cradled under my chin. The lights were so hot I could feel sweat pricking at my ears. The crowd just a sea of shadows and movement. My name in the program, Yamamoto Hana, second violin, flashed quietly in the foyer. After the performance, my old neighbors from Saitama, when they realized it was me, lined up to shake my hand. Some even cried. One of them told me, "I used to hear you practicing at night, thought you were strange, but you never quit, huh?" I smiled, said little, letting their words roll off my skin. Each season I returned. sometimes for main roles, sometimes as an understudy. The work was never easy, always hustling for the next contract, but the city's music world, once a fortress, now allowed me the smallest foothold. After years, nervous boards and auditions behind me, I found myself part of the invited artists for the spring concert at the same concert hall where